Hi, my name is Hannah, and today we're interviewing Zac Anderson. Originally from Australia, Zac is a recognized international football player and a successful serial entrepreneur. Today he gives us his view on business and economic trends as the curve flattens and we emerge into a post-pandemic world.
This podcast channel is about you, successful international entrepreneurs, successful expats, successful investors. Sponsored by HCJ.tax.
Morning, Zac. Thanks a lot for your time. How are you today?
Good morning, man. I'm fantastic. It's unfortunate that we can't be together, but moving into this digital world, it's nice to be able to connect.
Fantastic. So could you please introduce yourself to the few people that don't know who you are?
No, thanks, Derren. So my name is Zac Anderson. I'm currently living in Singapore. I have enjoyed a 10 plus years of professional football. My background is in professional sport. I started my career playing in Australia. As you can probably tell from my accent, I spent 6 years playing in Australia before moving to Dubai. And then I moved to Malaysia for 3 years, and then last year moved to Singapore. Within that period of time, I kind of moved across with a few different business and entrepreneurial startups.
Yeah.
But I really started to get more focused on my transition from football probably at the back end of 2018, start of 2019. As you can understand and appreciate, unfortunately, I can't play professional football forever. So It's been a fantastic career. But I had to kind of recognise that it was coming to an end, and I had also had some ambition to kind of move into that entrepreneurial business world as we've previously spoken about. So I started to kind of do my own kind of due diligence and look at where the economics was going, and like we're experiencing right now, it's all going online. It's all going in applications, and so I started to develop a couple of apps. I founded a wish making app out of the UAE called Genie, which is at its first round of funding this year, where we'll probably launch at the back end of July. And then my other major focus was my two loves, and that was business and football.
Right.
And so I connected with a partner of mine who was an ex-footballer as well. And one thing that I've come to appreciate, Derren, and that's you have to respect the process, and things take time. And I think that we have to kind of recognize what we love and kind of knuckle down and appreciate what niche you may inherently be good at. So for me, I understood football, and so the business side of things I knew that I could learn, I could develop, but football was in my blood. So my transition over the last probably moving from the last 5 years into the next 5 years is really how I can connect my love of football and business, and that's kind of moving into where I am now, and that is moving more into a world of football finance. And what I mean by that is money in sports never been bigger. Money in television rights, sponsorship, player transfers, and so where does that liquidity come from? And a lot of these clubs want to spend right now, but they don't have the liquidity right now. The money might come in 6 to 12 months' time in television rights. And so my business partner and I have been working out a structure over the last 6 months on how we can facilitate clubs to purchase players right now, and then potentially pay back that through receivables in the future. So that's been a really cool process that my partner and I are working on and continue to work on. And that really just comes down to, one, having the deal flow, having the relationships, as you can appreciate, and two, making sure the structure is right.
That's amazing. Wow. I mean, as you sound like you're not just an entrepreneur, but a serial entrepreneur and a successful athlete as well. So, obviously you have the vision and the ability to focus, because I meet so many people who have great ideas, but the ability to deliver and make it happen, that's what's rare. So I'm glad that I'm able to steal some of your time today. I appreciate that.
I think.
So we're in a period of transition. This is unprecedented, everyone would say. But obviously it will at some point settle down, and then we would return to business. And my question is, my curiosity is, what would business look like in the future? What are your thoughts?
No, you're right, Derren. And I think that one of the things I admire about yourself is I've only known you for a short period of time, but I've come to understand and appreciate how you've seen the change and you've implemented and you've kind of acted upon it, and you've seen how important content is. Now, the problem is, like you just mentioned, there's all these avenues where people talk about doing things, but there's very little people who really act upon it and really let their ego go to the side and really put out meaningful content. But to answer your question, I think that, like the saying says, never waste a good crisis, right? So I think we're going through that shift at the moment, and I think the biggest shift for me really is looking at how we spend our time. Where our expenses are. And I think the biggest thing for me personally, if I look at my own experience, we waste a lot of time during the day. You'll hear this all the time in business as well, is I haven't got enough time. And we all have the same amount of time, but people have the ability to utilize and be more productive than others. And now we're going through a period where we can appreciate that. And I think that what the big companies will come to appreciate is they don't need the New York office. They don't need the 5 floors in LA. I think that the shift from the expensive office to home will be a big change. The shift from not having to commute to work and losing that 2 to 3 hours of productivity. Like, I speak to, like you as well, we speak to our colleagues overseas, and, we're very lucky in Singapore that we can get the MRT and be at work in 10, 15 minutes. But we have friends who take an hour or two to get to work, and you hear about these employers who get upset for people going on lunch breaks and having a smoke, but you don't look at the amount of time it takes for people to get to work. So I think that when talking to professionals and people that I look up to, I think the biggest thing from what I'm hearing is how much time people have on their hands now. They're waking up. They don't have to commute. They're getting on their laptops. They're getting, they're doing their work straight away, and they have that extra 1, 2, 3 hours a day to be productive, which I think is a really cool change. And that kind of leads into the next part, where coming from a sportsman's background, I've always appreciated health. I've always appreciated how important it is to be healthy. But we've seen through this pandemic that it has affected the older generation more than the younger, but also it's affected people who have underlying health issues, and I think that we'll see a real, like, there was a shift coming in. There was more and more people coming, more self-aware. But I think that this has highlighted that as much as it's highlighted the move to wanting to be more appreciative of climate change. I think that these 3 things of how we use our time, how we holistically look at our health, and then how we really prepare to look after our environment, because we do talk about it a lot. We talk about climate change. We talk about the Paris Agreement. We talk about all these things that we want to do, but it's taken a pandemic for us all to sit down and to self-evaluate, to self-reflect, and it's almost like the world is saying, hey, go and sit in your room. It's time to to sit in the naughty corner for a couple of months, and just to understand that and appreciate that we are living in an environment, and it can be very quickly taken away from us.
Indeed. Okay. So greater sensitivity to work-life balance, greater productivity to the extent that we
Yeah.
can cut down commute times if your job allows that. A lot more remote learning and
Yep.
remote working. So obviously that will have implications because you say you don't need the five-story office in New York or whatever. So it may have implications for commercial real estate. It may have implications for business models around real estate. For example, WeWork, co-working spaces.
Yeah.
So that's what about in your line of work, in terms of sports? I've been watching Mark Cuban, the
Yep.
American entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and he's been really bullish on esports. What do you think about esports?
Yeah. It's so interesting, Aaron.
Yeah.
It's really come from nowhere, and
Mm,
I was an earlier investor in it, but to
mm,
be honest, it wasn't out of the pure love for it. It was more that I understood as a professional that there's only a certain life. We have a lifespan of 10 to 12 years. If you're an NFL player, it's 2. If you're a basketballer, they say the average is like 4 or 5. So
mhm,
there is this you know very short lifespan, and that's the thing that esports doesn't have. And
mhm,
this pandemic has just re-emphasized that fact that you can be at any age, you can be playing anywhere in the world, and you've seen the impact that this has had on sports. And
mm,
it's undeniable how much joy sport and entertainment brings to people.
mhm,
If that's sport, if that's music, if that's theatre, it's for me they're all in the same thing. It's a part of the entertainment industry, but unfortunately, this has been one of those major shifts where it's pretty much just it's put everything to a halt
mhm,
unless it's been esports. So I think that the traditionalists, like your Mark Cubans, like me, who love real entertainment and the gift of hard hits and injuries and the unforeseen circumstances. But unfortunately, it's the reality, and that is that these kids now, when I say unfortunate, I mean unfortunate for the likes of me, that these kids who are playing online, they're making like the guy who won the latest FIFA tournament. Man, there's huge incentive now. 1.5 to 2 million US net dollars. That's the price tag of a US Open finalist. So you can appreciate that the economics is there, and it's definitely moving in that direction. But yeah, I can appreciate the likes of Mark Cuban because I do resonate with the traditional view.
mm. Okay, that's good. Any other industries or any other ways you see things evolving as we come through this difficult period?
Yeah, like we've spoken about before. It's
Mm-hmm.
there's so many unforeseen periods over the next 3 to 4 months. The hard thing is knowing how long this is going to last for.
Mm-hmm.
But we are at the end of the day people who I think we all appreciate actually having that connection.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it will go back to some normality.
Okay.
And at the back end of 2020,
Mm-hmm.
it will just be, I think, a major shift in our thinking of how we treat the planet. I think the whole movement towards climate change will be immense.
Mm-hmm.
And how we spend our money. I think people will become a little bit more, I guess, diligent in the way that they prepare, their expenses during the week and what they spend their money on, their needs and their wants.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this pandemic has shown that we probably don't need as the luxuries that we're probably living, and then when something like this gets forced upon us, all of a sudden, we realise what we really need to survive, and that is, like the Singapore government have told us, Darren, is groceries and exercise. It's that simple. So I think that there'll definitely be an adjustment period, but I'm super optimistic, like a lot of people, that once this pandemic starts to flatten out, there will be a huge appetite to want to spend, which I think will boost the economy and the growth rate. Hopefully, businesses start to become profitable again with positive cash flow, and people can start to get jobs back. But really, it's a shift towards essential working, like essential jobs. Like the people who are affected are the people who don't have that X factor, who don't have that niche, who our healthcare workers are the ones that are really we're relying on now because they have that expertise. And I think that it'll be a real interesting period where people will kind of, I hope that people are going through this period now, but there will be a period where people think about, okay, well, what's happened? Why have I lost my job, or why have I got a pay cut? Why is my business suffering? Because maybe it's not as essential as other people need. So it's I don't know. I think that it's a time to mitigate as much personal risk as possible. I think it's been, if people look at this in a really positive, optimistic way, as long as you have your health and your happiness in your family, you can really take this time to self-evaluate and really look at yourself within and kind of take back the layers. At what point in your life do you get this opportunity to kind of be at home, collect your own thoughts? We live such a fast life. Everyone's always moving and going. It's very hard to get in touch with people. Yourself, myself, it's very difficult to sit down and have this conversation. If this pandemic wasn't happening, would you and I even be having these opportunities to have a chat?
True.
So I just think that having that, just having that moment, just to sit down and relax and just kind of self-evaluate, self-reflect, and just look within a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you giving us your time and your insight into what's happening and what the outcome could potentially look like. Zac?
Yeah, no, let's be optimistic, man.
Optimism is the key.
Yeah, that's it, man.
All right.
Thanks, Derren.
Thank you.